How are you? Is this your podcast setup?
No, this is
You
just my office setup.
and you have a standing
Uh,
desk, I can see.
yeah, I've been sitting all day and I had a fried chicken sandwich for lunch, so I need to get this energy off.
Fried chicken sandwich, is that a part of the diet? Or is that just
Yeah,
special?
it's a quarantine diet.
Quarantine diet? Yeah, I think I've been having the quarantine diet for the last month, and I've now just started to realize that this thing's going to probably keep going for a little bit longer. And if I keep doing this diet, it's going to be a very challenging time as soon as the quarantine's lifted. It's like, oh no, now I have to go to the gym all the
Yeah,
time.
for sure. Like every twice a day just to make it up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think actually, like just in the last 7 days, I started to walk twice a day in some of the meetings,
Uh-huh.
just so I can start to move, and I'm
Uh-huh.
getting my 10,000 steps. So
Nice.
that's kind of like a small little hack that I learned last week from someone at
Nice.
the office. So, but how are you going,
Nice.
man? Kind of how's everything?
Yeah, good. Things are kind of stabilized in the sense that my day to day is a little bit more normal. Um, we've canceled, we've cut back budget and kind of adjusted our marketing stuff. So it's not as crazy busy with new initiatives and stuff. So,
Yeah.
day is surprisingly calm. I'm like ready to do more, but I'm like, I need a break because I just came off of, you know, COVID response team of like for 6 weeks. So
Well, just before we get into that, quick intro. So I'm talking with Sujan Patel. He's a SaaS founder with companies like Mailshake, like Voila Norbert. That's how you say it, right? Voila
yeah,
Norbert.
yeah, yeah.
Like Right Inbox, like Narrow, Pick, Quuu, and he's a co-founder of the Webprofits arm in the US. So welcome. That's the official welcome, Sujan. Good to
Thank
have
you.
you.
Thank you.
I was like,
Likewise.
I can get Sujan on the podcast. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but let's just start with what you just said a second ago. Yes, what was the whole the COVID response thing which you did across your SaaS
Yeah.
companies? And just to be clear, like
Yes.
I'm going to be focusing on the SaaS side of things with you because obviously, like I'm doing a lot of talking about the agency side of things, and so with
Sure.
this chat, we'll just focus on the SaaS side of things. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, and in COVID response, I think first and foremost is every company would to figure out like where is what's happening, like who is their customers and what's happening. We had one company that's like brick and mortar businesses; they're shut down, like restaurants, retail, what have you. Another company that is um, right inbox, like unaffected users. I mean, there was a handful of users that were affected, but a lot of them were like there was a flood of buying. So it was like kind of the opposite scenario. Like finally some good news, right? Mailshake and some others like marketing budgets were cut, clients were cut, stuff like that. So we're trying to figure out like what do we do to like one make this thing predictable and know what's going to happen. Two, like what is happening so we can appropriately adjust not necessarily just our offering, but like what we can do to save that customer, right? And then on the flip side, what's happening on the marketing and sales front, so that we could better sell and market to those customers too. So we kind of had to do all of it all at once. So long story short, it changed our whole sales process. It changed our customer support and customer success process. And we kind of made this new rogue team that's like helps specifically with COVID related people that were helps talk to or communicate with people that were affected by COVID shutdown. Um, when I say shutdown, I mean, it's not most people, like, I don't think I had one person say, I got sick for 2 weeks. I had people saying, my business is screwed because it's closed right now, or I lost
Yeah.
like 90% of my revenue. What do I do? It's more of those, right? So it's not health, it's purely financial.
Yeah.
So what do we
Yeah.
do to save them? Okay, natural thing was like, let's give a discount, right? But like, that can get wildly out of control. Um, in one of our companies, um, we did a like when you actually check out, when you actually go to cancel, you get a prompt that says like, "Hey, were you affected by COVID?" Like, yes, I was. Okay, cool. we're going to help secure your, like, you're going to be good. You're not going to pay for while your business is down. That was pretty much the offer, right?
Yep.
And that saved like a third or half of people. It started with a half and then kind of went down. And then we would manually reach out to all the people who didn't take that offer, just as a secondary human touch.
Yep.
And we just gave them, like, in this particular business, it was a lot of brick and mortar. Businesses were making zero revenue. So we're like, hey, look, stay on board and you won't pay while you're down. As soon as you come back up, you'll pay. If it's a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, you won't pay. Like, whatever it is, you won't pay. If we did that same thing at Mailshake, even our best paying customers just take us up on that offer. It would blow up in our face and we would lose so much revenue. Now, I don't say this because, like, I'm cold hearted and I want all the money in the world. Like, that'd be nice. But, like, if we lose revenue, we lose employees, right? Like,
yep.
I don't want to lose my employees either. And then if we lose employees, they stop buying stuff. And then, like, it's just like a trickling chain, right?
Exactly.
So how can my company, like, help, or my companies, right? So a little bit of discounting, very limited time frames, right? A lot of understanding, a lot of helping people, a lot of training on remote sales, remote selling, like how to even do a COVID related thing, just as I'm doing now. It's like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I did. A few free months here and there, lots of case by case basis stuff, right? Like, yep. 90% of what we did was a case by case basis, but the team knew how to deal with it because we put like a person or two dedicated to that on it. And they did other
to those specific cases.
No. So, like, our COVID related issues were handled by 1 or 2 people, and they did that every day. And that wasn't the only thing they did. That was just like, they did that in addition to their normal role. But yep. Then they were better prepped to say, okay, if this happens, this happens. And you know, there was a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but a handful of abuse, right? Like, hey, my friend got a free month. How do I get a free month? Well, you know, somebody's friend got like a year for free, right? And, you know, so it's really like, we just did it on a case by case basis to save kind of face.
Yep.
And then we were trying to think of what can we do that are like, what can we offer that were not free? That one didn't cost anything, that were free for us, but very beneficial. So, like, education, right? What can we do? So we created a lot on the business that was targeting retailers and restaurants and, you know, whatnot. We created content on, like, how a business can improve during their downtime. Like, get reviews for your Yelp and Google Maps page, get your business listing, right? Like, ask every one of your customers to, like, post a picture of what they ate. Like, don't ask for a review, send a picture, do some construction, like, get your business ops in order, right? Like, use Xero, use, you know, whatever, right? So, like, it's like stuff like that we did that, like, it's free for us. I mean, we just write content all day. It's normal business, but that one person, you know, the 5 people or whoever, you know, implemented that, when their business comes back, it could be, you know, much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing those challenges. Because I'm sure
more than you wanted to hear, huh?
No. Like, I actually want to hear more. I'm going to go into, like, a lot of them now as well. But I think there's so many parts to that. Let's start by how kind of intense was that last 6 weeks in terms,
like,
because you had like a few companies that you had to kind of like affect that all on at the same time, and you had to kind of have a look at all of them, right? And yes, how hard was it, like, at the time? Because it's still happening ish, but you just said at the beginning it's kind of relaxed.
Yeah, if I had any hair, I would have lost it all. Like, it's just like it was. I think on an emotion, like, so I would say an emotional level hardest, physical level second hardest, and then, like, a secondary personal level, very, like, it's still emotion, but, like, professional emotion. I'll explain that in a second. But on a personal level, very difficult because we had to make some tough decisions. You know, a few people did get laid off in the situation, and we actually, like, I worked really hard to find jobs for people who got laid off. I made intros. Now, I can't make a guarantee, right? But, like, I made intros to, like, a recruiter. I made intros to, like, I sent people, like, job listings of remote sites. Like, I tried to go above and beyond because I thought the people we had, the 4 people we let go through this whole process, which that's about like 6% of our staff, right? 7% of our staff. So it's a, statistically it's not that big, but like 4 people's livelihoods were adjusted during a hard time, right? So, but that part, what I actually mean is like so I was affected by COVID too, right? So like my kids' daycare closed. So like now I have an 18-month-old running around in the background. My wife and I are trying to figure out how to work. And this is the time I have to work like 12-hour days, right? So so personally, I was just destroyed from like the amount of energy expended to just work, to show up to work a regular day. And then I had this long day, right? And so, I think, and the emotional level, I would say, is like, we're going to lose a lot of money. I'm going to work twice as hard, and that's okay, right? Just like, I'm completely accepted that like, it's going to be a shitty year, but one, I feel better because it's going to be shitty for everybody, like, let's just erase this from our memories, right?
2021 is our year. In 2019, it was like 2020 is our year, and then in January, it's like, wait,
2021.
Wait, 2021 is going to be our year.
Yeah. So I think like, I don't find solace in like everyone feeling the burn together. I just mean like the bar is that everyone feels the pain, and so it's just the new nature. And then stomaching the fact that like my businesses that were doubling year over year are now just going flat or losing a little bit. And that's the best case scenario. And I'm happy about that. Right.
And that's with you putting all that time in, right? That's with you putting everything in for 6 weeks to just make sure that it stays at that level,
and
right?
Taking pay cuts. So like for myself. So like working harder just to work, working harder at work, getting paid less. And then the ROI of me working harder is that we break even at best, right?
Yeah.
So like, to me, that's like a punch in the face, a punch in the stomach, a kick in the nuts, all at one time, right?
Yeah. I think what's interesting about that conversation is like I think, because I've been like in the same scenario, right? Like, what's this been going for 6 weeks now, roughly? I don't know. It feels like, again, 4 years, but I think, I don't know, it's 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, 5, 6 weeks. But like kind of instantly, everyone's on lockdown. Kind of the whole world's changed. You're needing to make some huge decisions like in the company. Now everyone's at home. Your children are home. The workload's completely different. Your partner will have kind of like challenges themselves. You're trying to not get the coronavirus at the same time. You're trying to be kind of tactful in terms of actually like how you change everything, but you still need to change everything, and you still need to be aggressive to ensure that at the end of this, you're at the best possible level like in a very bad scenario, right? And so, it's so exhausting, right? And then at the same time, trying to be healthy, I mean, that went out the window for me. Like I was just like, hey, I'm going to eat chocolate and cereal and pizza. And I went a bit too crazy, which is why, like, we're now at the stage where everyone's kind of over lockdown. It's like, okay, well, there's going to be life after this. In that first month, I think the like emotional stress would have been really hard for like a lot of people, and like relationships would have been kind of strained sometimes as well, right? Because like you're just now at home trying to find a balance, trying to be everything, trying to fit it all in, can't fit it all in. It's not possible, And I think, that's something that I don't think like a lot of people are speaking about, just from the professional side of things, just kind of that balance, And I've never been somebody that's been that good at balance anyway, but now you're kind of being forced to, because now you're just at home. There's no place where someone's going to go and have like their day at work or, like you're home. And it's like, that's what's happening, and then you have to make everything like succeed so that you keep your staff, you keep everything going. Like all the work which you've done over the past 5, 10, 15 like years is not just gone because of a virus, right? And I think there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And it all happens at one time. I think a good human, like a good capable person could handle maybe 3 or 4 of those things. Like someone exceptional could handle maybe 5 or 6, but like 10 things at one time just is tough, right? And then and this is a healthy person, right? So it's tough, right? Like imagine if you got sick. And side story here, my wife is pregnant, and so she did get sick with twins.
Yeah,
twins.
It's what I want to know that as well. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I have a leg and shoulder injury, which I was supposed to get surgery on my left leg, on my left knee. Anyways, so like I had a list of medical issues for my wife and myself, and we ended up having to go to the hospital. She had an issue. She's fine. We got to the ER. We got admitted, and an overzealous doctor was like, "Hey, like, just because you're pregnant, you have this mild fever. Just double check you don't have coronavirus. You eligible for a test?" I'm like, no. They're kind of like they twisted our arm to do it. Anyways, when you say yes to doing a coronavirus test at a hospital, you get quarantined inside the hospital. So we're like in a hospital room.
Wow.
For like a day and a half. So like personal level, like I was just down, and like I have an 18-month-old. So I was trying to like figure life out. I felt like I was an 18-year-old, like graduating college. I'm like, what do I do now? But I had like rent to pay tomorrow, but I have no job to pay. It was just like, I was like, what do I do? Right. So it's like in my world, like coronavirus is like here. And then the other shit I'm dealing with is like here. Right. So like, but it's stacked together. So yeah, very hard. But here I am. It's been about 7 weeks for me. Since all this stuff has happened, I have a smile on my face, very low stress again, accepting my fate of like the year is going to suck. And I'm healthy. And even if I wasn't, you figure out how to get healthy again, you know? Like
it's kind of one of those challenging things where, and this is something that we were talking about in our own marketing as well, which is around like you need to be marketing, you need to be selling, but you need to be aware that there's a global pandemic going on, so you can't be insensitive. And so that balance is like super difficult because like I was saying to somebody the other day, I was like, look, like I'm trying to at the end of this to be stronger, you know, like, yes, that's going to be the hardest thing possible in the world to do, but that's still the goal. But the one proviso is that you just don't get coronavirus, right? like it's so so focused on the business side of things, but the stories I've heard of the people that actually have had the coronavirus and how it just kind of just knocks you out for a long time. Like it's scary, right? Like it's kind of like and you don't know what it is or basically who's got it and kind of how long it's based on some packaging. And so now, you know, they're washing the supermarket stuff because like, I don't know. Right. And so, look, it is, it's challenging. I think this is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with, right? Like is this scenario in terms of the business side of things, you know?
Yeah. One of the things I find, it helps motivate me to keep going and like think about the end and past that is like, just think about like a year from now when let's just say you're 70% recovered from this. Maybe let's just call it 2 years from now. You're 80% recovered, 70%, whatever. You're not 100%. You're better than you are now, but you're not 100% recovered, which is kind of what this story is going to be for most businesses. And then you have a problem to deal with. It's like, oh, I can deal with one problem. That's easy. I could do it close. I could do it a Saturday morning at 4 a.m. It doesn't matter. And I could have gotten out drinking. And I just got home an hour ago. Like that problem is so easy when you've dealt with 10 at one time. No, it's not 10, but I would say the financial impact is like is equivalent of 5, right? Like it's just like an extreme. So I think the grit as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as a marketing leader, even as a working professional, right? Like, even as an intern, like if you can do it here, you can perform it walking with this amount of gravity, you can run a marathon in a year and it feels less than walking, right? So like put in the time, it's forced. Congratulations. Everybody now has to get a black belt in living and then you move on, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a super point. And that's not something I've actually considered yet, but it's like, like this is certainly just going to be a very important experience for everyone that's involved in this at the moment, just from like a work perspective on kind of like how to step it up, and the possibility that it can then that you can operate at this level, right? Like, and that like there's a pandemic going on, and we can all still come together through Zoom and Slack and Asana and all the digital platforms and perform in an environment that's probably the most challenging. Well, I hope it's going to be the most challenging of my lifetime, like it has been so far. And so I do think there's some side benefits there, which I kind of hadn't considered. So that's really interesting, you know. I think everyone's just so busy just trying to balance everything, survive, kind of handle the biggest problems. Like, you know, like in interviews, how they say, you know, could you tell me a time where you had to prioritize conflicting challenges?
I got you.
I got you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, let me tell you the story about the coronavirus pandemic and, you know, kind of how we had to like adapt everything and balance kind of family life and health and this and that, you know. And I think it's something which everyone has to deal with. But I also think that not everyone is like dealing with it the same way. You know, I think some people are stepping up. Some people are just stuck, and they're just kind of, they're not sure what to do, right? Like, and they haven't pivoted fast enough or adapted fast enough or know how to do it. So have you got any advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think about, you know, if you're in the world of like, I don't know, I can't find my footing. You don't need to don't think about like the next 5-year plan, right? Think about like, what are you going to do month 1, month 2, month 3? That's the 5-year plan, right? Like month 1, I'm just going to like get through my day. That's my goal. At the end of the month, at the end of the week, I just want to get through my day without dying, right? Like literally, right? In some cases, I just think like break this down into smaller chunks, and then think about what you're doing in your day, in your role, in your life. That has the biggest, like, what is, like, just make a list of everything you have to do. And then think about like, what's the 3 or 4 biggest things you need to do, right? Like, I personally hate going to the grocery store, but I'm the only one in my family who can do so. Like, I can't have my wife go. She's the most vulnerable. My 18-month-old, he just doesn't know how to shop or talk yet, right? Can't drive a car. He's pretty much useless. And then all the online places are all fucking broken. They're all just like, none of them work or fast enough. You know, there's only so many bugs, so I got to go, right? Like, now, you know, a month ago or 2 months ago, I really hated grocery shopping. It was like the worst thing in my list. I would refuse to go. Like, I just rather not eat, right? But like, this is my normal. Like, I need food to survive. I found 8 a.m. is the best time to go. So anyways, my point being is like, figure out what's the most important things for your health. You know, like, so you can't go to the gym. Okay, take a walk. Like you were saying, you walk twice a day, or you walk in your office. Like, take a walk. I get about 10,000 steps in too. I'm just looking at my steps. I don't leave my house most of the time. I have bad allergies, so leaving my house means I like sneeze and have all.
And then
issues.
everyone thinks you got coronavirus because you're sneezing. They're like, this guy.
Oh, but sneezing isn't a part of a symptom.
Oh, it's a sore throat, right? Sore throat.
Yeah, sore throat. As if you can tell
Fever.
what that looks. Yeah, so I have a sore throat. Yeah, that guy looks like he has a sore throat, you know. Anyways, so yeah, just think about the big things you got going on that are important to your living, your survival, and then think about what's the second challenge is, like, what can you do to make you happy, right? So one of the things I do is I take a walk around. I have coffee outside. I listen to a podcast for 15, 20 minutes. Like, I don't care what's going on. That's all I do. And it's not a podcast about what crap is going on in the world. It's just something I always wanted to do. So that's it. And I started watching. Another thing I do is like for entertainment during lunch, because I'm sitting on my desk and I don't want to work. I just need to take a break. I watch the great thing about the internet is that there's everything on there. So I watch on YouTube all the past conferences I wanted to go to, and I just look up like X conference and Y topic. So like, I'm watching like a 50 video playlist right now of 50 product management talks, right? Like over the last decade, probably like 6 years now. So like, that's going to give me like a master's degree in product management. Now, like in my role, I do product, related work. So boom, like it correlates right then and now, right? And it's like, like I said earlier, like when you're done with this a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever challenge you come up with, it's going to be like you can run a marathon because you've already walked 50 of them right now, right? Back to back without a break. And so it's like that. It's like you've learned all this stuff and it's just like way easier, right? So.
Okay. And then, so from the business perspective, like if somebody's stuck in terms of business, like what's a good place to start? Like they're like, oh, so all my business is now, shrunk. Like I've been like in the defense mode, trying to cut costs, right? Which is what basically everybody like in the business world has done. And they're not sure what to do next. What would you advise them?
I think the big thing is, what can you do next that can get you out of this hole? What's like not a long shot. Like I think getting all those long shots, the unproven channels you're working on in your marketing makes sense to stop doing now, right? But like if SEO is your bread and butter, like you should be doubling down on that. You should be looking at what are trending opportunities? What can I do to make my business not COVID proof? What happens after COVID, right? Like, so if you're a restaurant, how do you make your business streamlined for takeout orders? Because there's going to be mostly that when you come back, right? Or maybe not mostly that when you come back forever, but the 6 months after that, there will be, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's like thinking about like what's next with your business. So you have an agency, right? What happens and you lose? Really don't. Let's just make an estimate. You lost 70% of your business. Well, are we going to just gain it back? What's the best structure? Maybe you should think about what are the most profitable marketing channels that we've provided for clients. What are the most beneficial for the client? Like what are and don't build everything back. You usually shouldn't. You should build the strong things back. And you should think about like, what are the things I should be doing that are scalable, profitable, and beneficial to the, the customer or whatever. So I think those are kind of some ways I would look at it. Maybe you look at like your team and your role at the team, right? Like I've been through a shitty situation where I had a business, I was in the wrong role. I was a CEO and really I was long past that CEO role. And before the CEO, I was like the head of marketing. And before I was the head of marketing, I was like the SEO manager. And every time I got out of that role, I hired someone better. So, and although I'm saying to spend money in a time where money is tight, maybe you should think about who are the hires you need to have to build the organization that you want to be a part of, and what's your role. I learned a long time ago, I probably don't want to be CEO ever again. It turns out I actually do. I just want to have a better leadership team around me. Or, again, like, or these are the things I'm really good at. Like I really hate the finance part. And so of the CEO part, I need a strong finance person so that they can talk to me like I'm an 8-year-old when it comes to the finances part, right? And then turns out I just need to get a little bit better at finances. So what are things you can upskill yourself on?
Yeah, right. It's interesting because I think there's a possibility for quite a lot of organizations to change what they do. It's just really difficult, And so I think taking those steps at the same time, like as being kind of like that's more of an offensive approach. Yeah, like it's basically, we're trying to now start to attack, and up to this point, so we've just been kind of like defending, right? And so I think what's kind of happening right now is that not everything is going to be the same after this. And I think the companies that put all the effort in now to shift how they sell and to shift what they sell, especially if they can sell something right now, they're going to be the ones who come out stronger. I think all the restaurants and stuff, they're going to be okay. Like if they can survive this, like I can't wait to go back and eat food out again. I can't wait to have some nice wine, a steak, not wash the dishes, have a dessert, have hot chips, have all the different parts, which I just love to have, like I used to eat out way too much. And now I've had like a hiatus from that for the last 2 months almost, right? And so, look, I think like on that side of things, like all of kind of the food and stuff, like that's going to be there, you know, like it may change hands because they couldn't afford to last it out, but someone else is going to come. And I think that whole thing is going to be the same. I think anything which you can sell kind of online or that's a service, you know, like especially kind of on the B2B side of things, it's all about changing stuff. It's all about changing stuff now, right? Like it's all about trying to see actually how you can be relevant and how you can be helpful right now. Like, and if you can shift, especially if it's like a service where it's basically staff, it's systems, and it's basically the company behind that, but there's no product. Like it's not like, you know, some SaaS, right? Where you've got the software, you can adjust it like a little bit, but you can't change the whole thing overnight. But services, they can change their service overnight, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of companies that are like that. But I digress. You spoke before about like, you had to change everything from a customer service perspective. Like, what did you change?
Yeah, I mean, like you know, for customer service, there's probably maybe 10 to 12% of issues that come in are related to billing. It's inverted, right? Billing became the new, like that's the most common thing. And then there was subcategories underneath there, right?
Yep.
And there was just kind of dealing with the unknowns, right? I allowed, you know, I kind of empowered the team to say, okay, if it's under X amount of dollars, you make the decision. If it's under from X to Y, 2 people need to make the decision. Like 2 people should look at it. And if it's more than Y, I want to be involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that I can take the hit if I make the wrong decision. And I'm not going to say it's the right, I've never always made the right decisions, but then at least there's like a triage, right? So stuff like that. Now, again, like the whole process of everything we've had just like broke, because if we just kept using that old process, if we just said no refunds, sorry, look at our terms of service, or like no discounts, then like our competitors would be eating our lunch, right? So, or like then the user loses, we lose, and then what? Like they're going to go somewhere anyways, or maybe they go nowhere. So they don't do that thing, right? So it was thinking about how we can be helpful, right? Changing the email copy around, or change again, like optimizing certain things, or sending time be different, right? Like, so for example, you know, if you like, how many emails did you get from CEOs saying like a message from our CEO regarding COVID? Like how many fake bullshit, like high level fluff did you get, right? Long-winded emails that kind of said nothing, right?
Yeah.
So in a world where like now, like being in the email space with 3 companies in the email space, time to send emails, you're dealing with a lot of crowded emails right now, right? So how do you stand out? It's a little different than it was before, right? Because there's so many COVID related things, or so many, like, let's say you're normally used to selling to a certain audience, and now they're all working from home. And now the stakeholder needs to get the buy-in from, I mean, the person who's buying it needs to get the CEO's approval, but like they're all struggling and they're trying to save their business. So like now all of a sudden you're fighting against a more crowded inbox and the people who really don't have as much time, and they all are concerned about money, when like price at Mailshake and Right Inbox, we used to always win on price. We were one of the lowest costs in the market for our space. And so pricing wasn't the biggest issue. And now all of a sudden pricing is the issue. Always. Yeah. Right? Even if it's not, it's an issue, right? Time, like people would just go and use the software, and now they're like, well, should we do this right now? I don't know, like blah, blah, blah. Like they have to deal with their emotional element as well. So it's just like the same stuff we're dealing with, our customers are dealing with. And so we had to figure out ways to kind of cope with that. Now, I'm not giving specifics because there wasn't a one size fits all. And I would say the solution is actually not the problem. Like that's not what you should think about. Think about what your customers, if you're a service, whatever business you are in, SaaS service, whatever, think about what things your customers, your buyers, your ICPs, your personas, whatever you want to call them, what they're dealing with. Like the challenges and their goals are different now. And they might be temporary or they might be permanent. The challenges of budget, time, whatever are different, right? So for example, everyone is working remote, where like a lot of our customers we sold to, although we were always remote, our customers were like, oh, let me go bring my boss, or let me go bring this person. But now that person's busy and they're not even in the same office. We, instead of, trying to coordinate that, we, at the end of our follow-up, it's like, at the end of our meeting, we do a follow-up that sends people a link to a demo for their boss, right? Or like a 2-minute version of something, right? Like, so those are ways you can streamline the process to help get everybody caught up, right? Because to get your boss to come on a meeting with you and then like schedule it out when they're really busy dealing with all the stuff that they've got on their plate might be 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, that person might be out of business. Right? That client might just be gone. And then like, again, well, another like less crazy way to look at this would be in 2 weeks, they're not thinking about buying your software anymore. They've moved on to 15 other problems you've got to deal with, right? And so the buyer cycle, purchasing cycle change, maybe shrunk, elongated, pause, whatever.
It seems that, well, I think like it is that the SaaS market is this kind of similar to the B2B market, right? Like it's selling to businesses kind of the majority of the time, right? Sometimes it's to consumers, but most of the time it's to businesses. So from a B2B perspective, price is a kind of like a huge thing right now. And I think you're not competing against the other companies out there. You're competing against them just not spending money with you, or spending money at all. Yeah. So they're just like, cool. So should I spend money at all right now? And like, cool. So I'm going to spend this money. Am I going to have the time to use this software, to use this service? Right.
And then what do I say myself? Like, what do I email people about? Like we're an email tool, right?
Yes.
What the heck who do I sell to? Who do I market to? Who do I, outreach to? So like everything underneath the buying decision has collapsed, but it's not collapsed. It's changed. But if I were selling to myself, a business owner who's dealing with a bunch of stuff, to me, it's collapsed. The reality is it hasn't. It's changed. This has changed. What time of the day I email has changed. My strategy has changed. The cost of which I'm willing to pay has changed. Everything has changed. And so as a salesperson, you have to navigate the different things and you can get there, but it's like a maze. Which one do you solve first? Which one, so I think like what I typically say, and I always do, and I see the Webprofits team do this, is consultative selling. Be helpful, be educational, solve the problem. Like, okay, well, what are you trying to do? Let's put our solution to the side. Like, what's your biggest concern? Budget? Okay, well, let's get to that at the end. What is the next one? Well, let's just say we can work with you on the budget.
Yep.
Check, right, for 1 second. Then you get to the core of the problem. Oh, what if the messaging isn't? Well, let's review it together. Cool. And at the end of like an hour call, you might have just done all their work for them and just solved all of their concerns by saying, well, you can adjust the copy here or do this or like, whatever. Or you know what, that's not going to work. That's where you need to change. Your offering is too big or like too expensive, blah, blah, blah. So I don't have the specifics. I just know that like navigating it through the zigzags is possible. Yeah. And I have to say, in 3 of our companies, 3 out of the 8, we had our biggest months ever last month. And April will be beating those months. So 2 months in a row with our best numbers ever. Now, top line revenue, not net new. So our churn is also obviously much, much higher. But to sell the best 2 months in this worst 8 weeks, depending on where you are at, of a year, of a decade, it is a pretty big accomplishment, I would say. And just moving it, moving at the speed of light in the sense that like we had no strategy. We piecemealed it together. after doing 5 or 6 different, I guess calls and things worked. So or
did
didn't totally
you
change it.
have the best months ever just because of the demand increase, or was it things which you changed?
There was actually demand decrease.
Demand
Things
decreased,
we
but
changed.
it's things you
Our close
changed.
rate, our close rate went up on the sales front, and then we did a lot more things to improve the conversion rate. So our responses, right? Like you look at the Webprofits. I know we're talking about SaaS, but just take a look at the Webprofits.agency website.
Yep.
It is about COVID. The response rate is COVID related, right? Like it is all about the messaging, right? So if whatever, what business you're in, adjust the messaging, play with that. You can get, depending how much traffic you can get data back in very quickly.
Yes.
Same thing with your sales pitch. Change that, adjust it, play with that, what works and your approach. You want more traffic? Well, like wrong time, dude. Not going to get more traffic right now, right? Like, or maybe it is the right time to get more traffic because traffic is cheaper if your messaging is right? So
Messaging's at the core, though. Yeah. So
messaging is the core.
that was at the core of kind of what changed in those 3 companies, right? That kind of changed things around, and you kind of just like, I think because one of the objections, that's the closest word I can think of right now when you hear a company succeeding is like, oh, their product was in demand. And so they didn't even have to try that hard. And so, yeah, they're lucky. But actually, the message makes a huge kind of impact in kind of just capturing that demand. Is that right?
Absolutely. And especially now more than ever, where emotions are high, if you can get somebody to pull the trigger on that emotion, meaning your message resonates with them.
Yes.
It's already going to be a slightly deeper level because of the fact that everybody's kind of already at an emotional state, right?
Yep.
Like you and I are at a higher emotional state than we ever have been. And that's the case. Like no matter what, like we're all just a little bit on edge. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, right? So you have to play very good example of a bad thing. President Trump talking about digesting whatever, right? Bleach. Bad thing. Bad, whatever you think of the guy, that's not a right statement to say. Now, if somebody at his stature said that and it wasn't during his time, not as bad of a thing, right? Like, or like if you just tied it back a little bit,
yeah,
could have been okay. So like it just really, I think the biggest thing I'm saying here is right now, sales and marketing people need to first treat the emotions related to what's happening to the prospect, to the visitor, to the potential buyer.
Great
and whether
point.
it's an ad or a call or demo or whatever.
Yep. How long do you think the COVID-19 like the messaging around COVID-19 is going to be relevant for? Because I mean, are people already starting to get sick of it, like, or not? Like,
Probably.
I'm starting to see it a little bit where, like, I think everyone's kind of over lockdown. They just want to get out, right? They're like, we've been here for a while now. COVID-19 still captures the eyes. Like, say, for example, if I'm looking at some subject lines in my emails and something's very specific about COVID-19, where everything else is still that standard stuff, right? And they haven't changed anything. But like, how long do you think it will be relevant before it needs to change?
I think so
it's a hard question, to be clear, right? I'm just asking like your opinion.
So what I think is that like you have to play this on a week by week basis, right? Banner blindness, messaging like fatigue happens, right? We're dealing with the unknown, black swan of like an issue, right? But I mean, like, I think just look at it week by week and see if the performance starts to tank, right? I think as long as there's a health issue, the health play works, right? Like, sorry, if you say COVID-19, once we're past the health issue and the kind of things start to open up, which in the US kind of now they're starting to open up. Well, then there's the like, things are coming back to the post COVID, right? And
Yeah.
then what happens after that? Like, does this, depending on how this plays out, is there like a resurgence of COVID? Like play the waves, right? We're in the wave of COVID's knee deep right now. There's still the health concern.
Yep.
After that, there's another concern. After that, there's another issue. So kind of, I guess, trying to stay relevant, or maybe even another way around this is like, nobody has all the answers. So maybe you're one of those people who says, here's how this thing plays out.
Yeah.
Or can play out. And then here's what you can do, right? So like, just go with that approach, right? I think one of the first things people said was like, when the stock market in the US started tanking, people are, hey, don't freak out. Historically, and they like, I think some analysts did like a comparison over the last 100 years or something since the stock market existed. Anytime there's a crash, generally speaking, it got to positive 12 months, within 12 months. Now, we're dealing with the health crisis and then the financial crisis underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
So this has to be removed before this can apply. But this is historical, data. So I don't know. I would just say like, things are going to be relevant for a while and nobody has the answer. Test it week by week. I think what used to be a month or two of testing is now a week or two. And then like in a month or two, it might not be relevant anymore.
So it sounds like it's very active. And I mean, that's exactly the experience kind of that we're having just with ourselves and with our clients, right? It's very active right now. Like the messaging is changing. Like you can absolutely perform in this time, and you can absolutely just get leads and sales and all that stuff in this time. It just requires massive amount of kind of effort and work and kind of like ability. Like you actually need to be pretty good at it. Like you can't fumble your way into it, because at the moment if you fumble your way into it, you can get it wrong. And it might just not work, and you could hurt your brand, right? So there's a way to do it, but it does sound like it's extremely active right now, like per week, changing everything every single week and having a look at everything. And, we changed our website across all 3 regions 4 weeks ago, and we changed it in 3 days. Now I'm at the point where I'm thinking, I think it needs to change again. I think like that message was relevant, was the most relevant message at the time. The times have changed pretty quick. And so now, like, how hard is it? Change all your messaging again across your website, across your content, across your Facebook ads, across everything else, right? And I think, but that's what it is. That's what it is, right?
It's going back to startup phase. It's going back to like, let's just assume everything you knew about, like, doesn't matter if you're like $1 billion business or you're, $1 million business. Act like a startup. Move fast. Be nimble. Okay, your content and marketing message are going to change. Make something where you can allow it to change quickly, right? Change your headlines and sub-headlines, and like, don't make it so you have to re-record a video every time and produce it, right? So I think be smart with the fact that you need to be agile. And I think like the other thing about this is, although it's a bad time to think long-term, like 2 things. How are you going to make it past this time? So do you have the financial runway to make it past whatever? So, one thing I did at my business, all my businesses, and my partner and I did this in a week, actually like a Thursday through Monday. We did a okay, a bad, a worse financial planning. And we operated as if it was in the bad, but ready to go to worse. And it turns out okay was like, let's just keep it simple. Okay was negative 10%, so 10% decrease. Bad was 20%. Worse was like 40%, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Play with those numbers depending on what's happening over the course of a week or 2 or 3 weeks, whatever.
Right.
But operate in the bad. So you're going to be like bad, and then be able to move quickly, right? And so let's say you're going to maybe have to do layoffs. Well, prepare the people you need, who you need to absolutely run your business, right? And the others are the people you think might come in maybe you have that conversation saying, look, here's what's happening. We're going to hold on tight. Here, it's time to be humane, right? If you know, try to be forward thinking. The other thing is invest in your future. So like at Mailshake, we actually hired 2 devs. Why? It's a good time to hire because people will take jobs for a little less money, right? Good time to hire essentially. And there's a lot of good people out there to hire. But we're building like a sales engagement platform. So we're doubling down on building, and we know we can build and roll out during this slow time. Well, it's not slow, it's just different, right? Like
Slow for growth.
it's slow for growth. We'll be happy being like, it would be my dream if we can end this next 6-month period being flat, right? Or a little up. Like 1% up or 2%. When we were on pace to double, right? And so our reality is adjusted. But yeah, invest in R&D, build new product, do new things. I do think on the SaaS front, you can build a skunkworks team, 1 or 2 devs, to go quickly build something overnight. I don't doubt that you can build fast. Now, I don't think you can scale fast to from an MVP or like a usable product to a scalable, functioning long-term product. But I do think, stuff can be built in a day, in a weekend, right? Maybe you don't get all your customers on it. Maybe you get a few people, right? But yeah, you can kind of scale. So in the agency world, maybe we would offer like an audit service, or maybe we would offer like hey, here's a 1-month plan. I'm just thinking out loud here of those are things we would never do before, but maybe now is a time we would be willing to do a 1-month thing, or like a week by week installment in payments. And I'm not saying we do any of this. I'm just saying those are random ideas that if we said that, if I came to you with that idea, you'd be like, that's a stupid thing. But now it's like, maybe it would work, So
it's interesting on that point, because I think I think everybody, and this is including ourselves, and this is something that we've done, is question all the assumptions which you ever had. You don't get good leads from search. Well, you don't know who the leads are anymore, first of all. Your Facebook ads doesn't convert. Actually, it kind of does, depending on what you say, right? This service, that's not profitable. Well, that service is in demand right now. And, the thing which you were selling before but that's basically stop selling, right? And so I think it is that startup mode. It is that kind of thinking behind questioning everything, changing things quickly, and creating a model which allows you to change fast. Yeah. Like say, for example, the changes on our website. Before we had the 10 sales pages, but now we've got 3, because we're not selling 10 things anymore. We're selling kind of the one thing, right? Like at the moment, right? Which is helping organizations survive this thing, And so thinking differently, I think is important. I also think you really only need one good offer right now to go to market with, right? I think a lot of companies, the challenge is they're not getting enough sales. So you can solve that with one fantastic product, one fantastic offer, and a good promotion strategy. You don't need to sell 10 things at the moment, except if you sell e-commerce stuff, obviously, right? But just from a service perspective, you just need one solid thing that can go to market, that talks to the market, that you can engage with them on,
Yeah. One thing I want to add, I know we talked for 55 minutes about the dreary present and future that's going to happen of things suck, you're going to be on their toes, whatever. But I think that there is a lot of good. One is innovation, right? When people get laid off, when people get fired, when a mass amount of stuff changes, this is when the world innovates, right? Most people I never would buy groceries online. Everybody's buying groceries online because they don't want to get sick, right? It is a booming market, right? Online education used to be something that no one would take seriously. My 18-month-old is going to school online. He's every day he does an hour with his teachers and peers, right? And he can point to a Zoom and point his friends out. I would never have thought about that a long time ago. Debatable if that's good or not at this age, but that's for no time. But online education, right, is a big thing. Maybe that's the shift in the business model from universities to online education, maybe, telemedicine, right? Those are two industries I think are going to be changing very quickly, right? So although there is a really bad time in the world, can you get into those markets? How can, so think about how you can innovate. And then the other part of this is like, there will be in some industries or in a lot of industries, a surge of people coming into the market, right? So e-commerce, maybe there's a surge of people building e-commerce stores. And if that's the case, if you're a service business, how can you tier towards new e-commerce stores?
Exactly.
So adjust your offering, and maybe this is just temporary in terms of like your offering, right?
Yeah. I think that's a super point. Just the final point around this whole scenario that we find ourselves in is that you're quite well known in the content marketing space, right? And like if anyone just has a look online, they'll find a lot of stuff about that to do with Sujan Patel. Yeah. But what are you seeing right now from a content marketing perspective? Because, we keep hearing that content is being devoured right now, right? Like, there's like quite a lot of organizations that aren't investing money, but content is just kind of there right now. So, and now it's getting very crowded, right? And so what would be the advice to people who are looking to create content that stands out?
Yeah, so I think, so first and foremost, repurposing or reusing some of your best content is a good time. Like right now is perfect. Just change the messaging, okay? Bundle it together and maybe make like a table of contents and link all your best content together and say, hey, this is the corona, like this is your guide to boredom, right? Like read this. Or this is what you can do to learn a new skill, right? Like I said, I'm watching all of the product management courses out there, right? Or not course, lectures out there and off of past conferences. I mean, like, again, just repackage stuff. Now, on that same light, think about like your tried and true, like we're a SaaS business for sales, but guess what? People working remote and doing remote sales is a topically relevant thing right now. It's very current events. Not so much a thing that would care about. Like all the conferences in the sales space went virtual. I mean, conferences everyone went virtual, right? But we can create a content library that's like, here's all the free stuff you can consume, right?
Yep.
Or like, there's all these virtual conferences, people don't have time. Here's the key takeaways from them, right? There's so much angles and things you can do to play. So another thing is like, here's your nightly learning. Here's your weekend's guide to boredom, right? Stuff like that.
So it sounds like you're a bit bored. I think you mentioned that example twice. The guide to boredom.
Well, I think a lot of people say they're bored. That's a common thing I'm hearing about. When I think bored is not the right word. I think it's like unable to do the things that they normally want to do. And they need to fill the void because they don't want to think about the other stuff, right? They're tired about coronavirus thoughts. They're consuming information. If you can get them to read something else, right? So
what kind of content are you talking about now? Like, are you talking about articles? Are you talking about videos? Like, are you talking about, the big pieces of content? Like, what are you talking about right now?
I would keep it short and punchy right now. Like something digestible from your phone. An email newsletter is good. Video is great, right? I think if you can, I think video has worked since day one. I think you might have to move to platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, where people are spending more of their time. And a friend of mine, Chris Winfield, like he's in the PR space, and he's like, yeah, you can still do PR right now. Just try to work your way into the things people are talking about, right? So think about whatever business you do, right? So for us at Mailshake, it's sales. How do you do sales right now? I talk to you a lot about random things you can do to sell right now. Like, so it's just thinking about how you can shove whatever topic and category you're in into slices of current events that are happening now.
Super point. I think, I think the good way to think about it is to focus on the industry and combine the industry basically with the current challenge, right? Like that's what you're saying, right? Like it's not about you. Don't talk about you. That's not what it's about. Speak about, because that's all the emails that I've ever received in the last 4 or 5 weeks is like, it's all about their company and that they're surviving and all. That's not content. That's just a waste of people's time. Instead, just focus on, cool, so how do you progress the industry right now? And, so how do you support this in this industry, right? And I think that's a super point. We're out of time. Trying to keep it kind of on point. I will give a quick plug to Mailshake.com. That's the outreach software that we use. It's highly recommended, and it's very reasonably priced compared to all the other software out there. It's highly recommended. I mean, I use it, which is obvious. But look, thanks so much for your time, Sujan. And I know you've got a challenge with like 18-month and twins on the way and trying to keep everything together. So like, I do appreciate your time and sharing of your stories. It's very much appreciated, mate.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And everyone that wants to get in touch or whatnot, just tweet at me or find me on LinkedIn. Pretty active.
And also you can check him out at sujanpatel.com as well. There's a lot of fantastic information around content marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I have so many sites. You might have to do like a credit roll of like all the things to plug in. But look, I'm around if anyone needs help. Thanks for having me, Alex.
Thanks, Sujan. Speak to you soon, mate.
Later.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Growth Manifesto podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please head on over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. For more episodes, please visit growthmanifesto.com/podcast.